Welcome everyone to the November 9th meeting of the Village of Defaults Planning Board. Tonight we have a slightly different agenda with just two public hearings and some administrative business. First, I'd like to start out with the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to review the October 3rd, the October 17th minutes? Hi. Great. So, moving on, I'd like to move on to the public comment section. This is for general public comments. We will be having hearings on the health departments later. Is there anyone here to make a general public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to move on to our first public hearing, PB 21-13-14, 54 Manheim. So this project received planning board approval last November, and it is now coming back before us for an extension. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Is there anyone here to make a comment on PB 21-13-14? Yes, this is the Manheim News project.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay.
But I just want to say that I hope vendors support that. And
Here to make a comment on 54 South Manheim. No, in that case, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing.
so moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With that, I'd like to go through the resolution. We have a resolution of approval for the resolution of subdivision approval for Manheim News. We have the standard resolution with no special conditions.
Well, it just echoes everything that was in, it incorporates everything that was in the original approval resolution. So, break all back out, it's the exact same thing. We've already approved the extension for the site plan and special use permit, and this reissues subdivision.
Got it. Okay. So in that case, I have a motion to approve the resolution of subdivision reapproval. And have a call. So with that, let's just start our
Guys.
That's a good idea.
The public comment section was scheduled to start at 7 p.m. We completed that section. at 6:45. Um, November 9th meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. We are now at the portion of the meeting where we're having a public hearing for PB 21AX New Paltz Apartments. Well, first I'd like to get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 21AX.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. So first I'd like to introduce the project, and then I will turn it over to our planning board attorney to talk a little more about the process. So the applicant, Commercial Street Partners, is proposing to construct a 250-unit student housing campus consisting of townhouse and cottage-style homes of approximately 724 beds, with a clubhouse and fitness center, pool and patio area, along with associated parking, and a nature trail on 2 parcels containing 129 acres located along Route 32 South and Cross Creek Road, currently within the town of New Paltz. The proposed action includes an annexation of the parcels in the Village of New Paltz, rezoning of the parcels to R3 under Village of New Paltz zoning law, and a subdivision / lot merger that will result in 4 separate lots. Proposed development will be located on a single 60-acre lot, and the remaining 3 lots will remain vacant or as currently developed with existing single-family homes. The application materials are located on the table. There's a site plan there as well as up here. And I'd like to turn it over to our attorney, Emily Fenson, to talk about the process.
On each. Record to raise their comments on environmental impacts and appropriate ways of mitigating those impacts. And we're taking comments both orally at this hearing as well as in writing. Comments can be submitted in writing through November 24th. And the board will consider all of the comments submitted both orally and in writing. So if you have more to say, go ahead and submit it in writing. After the hearing is closed, the board members will have an opportunity to discuss the comments and determine how the issues should be addressed, including through changes to the draft environmental impact statement and written responses to the comments. So for the board members, you will have an opportunity at a future meeting to discuss these comments and add your thoughts. So you don't need to comment tonight, but if you want to make a comment on the record, you're welcome to do that orally or in writing. After after the hearing is closed, the board, like I said, will process those comments and will prepare the final environmental impact statement. And then after that's all done, there will be an additional processing of the application by other boards and agencies. So this is not the last opportunity to comment on this project. You know, as it goes forward, the town board, the village board will have to take a look at it. And after that, it would come back to the planning board for us to look at the details of the site plan. So the purpose now is really to talk about the big picture environmental impacts and how they can be mitigated.
Thank you. So I will be calling people up in the order that they signed in, and I would just like to ask that everyone limits their comments to, 6 to 7 minutes or so, so that we can give everyone a chance to speak. With that, I'd like to ask Jackie Brownstein to come up. And yes, please, if you could come up to the table and just state your name and where you live.
Jackie Brownstein, I live in New Paltz. I'm here as a representative of housing, as well as being a long-time New Paltz resident. We have numerous questions regarding the EIS, and in particular, how it meets the village's stated key responsibility of providing affordable housing. Also, since this is one of the largest, if not the largest, private developments in New Paltz history, we would expect that affordable units be available for individuals and families within the development. I'll be addressing section 2.7, project purpose, need and benefit. By the way, I do have a copy of this, if that makes it easier. In particular, the alleviation of housing cost, response to community growth goals, and the reserving of 10% for much needed affordable housing. Also, I will speak to 3.8, existing utilities, availability, and capacity. The DEIS states that to meet the village's 10% requirement, 25 units will be set aside for affordable units from the development of 724 rented beds. A unit can contain anywhere from 5 bedrooms to 1 bedroom. There are 248 units of various sizes. The stated purpose of New Paltz Apartments is to provide housing for students. How will it then meet the need for affordable housing for families? Even using families in its broadest sense, as defined by HUD, how do beds rented out to individual students having, I assume, separate leases and who come and go depending on their student status constitute a family? The obligation of the village is to provide housing for families at or below 60% of Ulster County AMI. We do not see how this development, as described in the DEIS, will meet that obligation when it's being developed both in structure and purpose for students. We want to see the village meeting its obligation by requiring the developers to construct separate housing to meet the needs of non-student individuals and families. Additionally, as stated in section 3.8 of the DIS, the village will be providing the sewer and water to the development, with the developer constructing a water main extension and an equalization tank for the sewer. We have real concerns about what this implies for the building of affordable village housing in the village in the future. The village has repeatedly stated their concern about the impact of development on their water and sewer systems and their future capacity to provide those systems. Now a large development that will be annexed supposedly to the village and is not an affordable housing development will be potentially straining those systems. Will this deter the development of future affordable housing as we are facing a housing crisis immediately? There are still many questions we have related to this project. We don't think the residents of Fishbowls have been well informed about all its implications. This is a 262-page document. Summaries need to be made widely available and residents given the opportunity to read and digest the information. Public hearings must be kept open. Thank you very much.
Ask that anyone who wants to make a public comment tonight, please sign in on the sign-up sheet up there, and we'll be going down in order of how you signed up. So next, we have Denton. Susan, sorry.
I am here as a Newport resident member. Discovered the topic of community and draft environmental impact statements. Section 2.7, project purpose, need, and benefit, and page 21 on reserving 10% of the units for affordable housing. There are some things I feel need clarification. The apartments are being rented as units. Each of those living in a unit will sign a separate contract, I assume a lease, for their individual space. If I'm right about that, then there'll be 720, give or take 2 or so, individual agreements. That would mean that 10% of 720 lease contracts would be 72 bedrooms, not 24 units. It doesn't seem to me like you could have 72 leases and not think of that instead of 24 units. Because if a unit can only be one person as a family, then all those 720 individuals would be families. Anyway, so that's just my thinking. This is not permanent housing. It would be transitional housing for the period that a person is registered student. So I'd like to understand more about how that works. Because students come and go, they transfer, they drop out, it just changes. They go somewhere for the summer. I found no indication of how the 10% affordable housing will be constituted or located. Will they be targeted for single students or suitable for families? According to the executive summary, there is presently 413 student rented spaces in the village of New Falls. The DEIS posits the apartments offered will be rented by students who already live in the village at the apartments that are offered at the New Falls Apartments. I don't think it's a reasonable assumption that all of the students are presently living in the village, or even the majority of them would necessarily want to go to those apartments. And the vacant apartments that they left, there's no guarantee that those apartments, if vacated in the village, would remain affordable. There's no provision for how the town will be kept apprised of the continued commitment to the affordable units, what they will cost, how the rest of the project will be monitored to ensure commitments made by the DEIS will be monitored over time for its promised elements. And I wanted to urge you to please keep this public hearing open for a reasonable amount of time so that a large part of the village will at least have had the chance to think about it and comment. And in general, I would say that it seems like there are fewer students rather than more students, and I don't know if that's been considered. So I want to thank you for your attention.
Lawrence Altman. Are open. And distinguished like to comment about survey done by Joe Diamond, my former student and colleague at SUNY New Orleans. First, I noticed that there are no letters of support for the proposal from the president of SUNY New Orleans and the SUNY chancellor in Albany. If there was a real need, these letters would be campus statistic. 6% campus dormitory occupancy was 90%. This figure major budget cuts, budget cuts in the SUNY system. Budget of SUNY is heavily weighted, as the students can tell you here, towards funding the medical schools and hospital centers run by the SUNY system. The full university centers at Albany, Binghamton, Buffalo, and Stony Brook take much of the rest of the money. Four universities, the state colleges get is what is left over after that. There are other factors as well. The city of New York is close to bankruptcy at this moment. Based on attempting to care for, house nearly 200 documents. State on its finances have to deal with this crisis. So that under these circumstances, the likelihood of SUNY New Paltz getting more state funding at this time to expand admissions is slim to none, even though SUNY New Paltz has a stated goal of increasing enrollment by approximately 1,000 in the next 3 years. That's a lot. SUNY New Paltz Office of Institutional Research. Thirdly, students more and more are taking online courses to save the cost of their education and for overall convenience. Yes,
13% of all undergraduates and graduate students at SUNY New Falls are enrolled in online courses. 18% of all graduate students alone here are registered in online courses. SUNY New Falls Office of Institutional Research. This fall, the number of online courses were 223 synchronous, 34 combined, and 27 synchronous. Statistics from the SUNY. Don't ask me what that means. Please, don't ask me. Although I am aware that students and residents on campus is projected to grow significantly in the future. And anyone reading the Chronicle of Higher Education can ascertain that. Indeed, it is possible that some of the distinct residents will become not too distant future succumbing to our new world of cyberspace education. Fourthly, the proposals make economic sense. Major city an absurd comparison, not based on purchase, with the same space campus in the small town. Is that really a need for added students, especially the
I'm a dentist also. I am a member of the UAC Housing Committee also. We are a pesky bunch. We are all about affordability. That is what we've been working on for years. And that is what concerns us with this project. How the village requirement for the 10% affordable units, or I don't even know what to call them, it's units, but that's what needs a definition too, unit. How will that be achieved by this project? The DEIS is not clear about that. Number 25 is offered as the goal to meet the requirement. Apparently that's based on 248 units. That's your 10%, I guess. Some of those units have 1 bedroom, but also 5, 4, and 2. So we can begin to try to imagine how is that configured, you know, to get those 25 in units in there. What is the expectation of how they are placed? And this is a decision, I believe, that has an impact on design. Because if you look at, I've looked at that plan, you have cottages, 1-bedroom cottages here, one there, one there, one there, all throughout the village here. Is that the best design to achieve this affordability of 10%? Could it be possible to take 1- and 2-bedroom cottages and have them in a separate, although there's no separate, but an area away from the main campus, let's say, because that again addresses issue, how will affordability be achieved? The key question is, again, to repeat, how will the law be addressed? How will it affect the design of the project? Who will also ultimately be living in those designated spaces? And also, how will the process of eligibility for those spaces be determined and carried out? Who's living there? The DES anticipates that SUNY students currently living in off-campus residences will move into those apartments, and thereby the project will stabilize rents, quote, and, quote, improve affordability in the village, they say. What does the project anticipate will be the rental costs of those apartments? How would those costs compare to what are being charged in off-campus housing, in our one-bedroom apartments or our rooms on campus, ADUs and so forth. How does it compare to the dormitories? We have really no idea, and not that we should from this DEIS, but we have no idea what the cost structure will be and how it compares to what the DEIS points to as different housing spaces, dormitories, village, and the village of New Paltz itself. I think we need to have a better idea of that. Does the project anticipate that affordability in village housing will improve simply on the basis of supply and demand? Is that the idea? You know, pull those people out of there, and therefore there'll be more competition and the rents will go down in the village. Well, okay. Does that anticipation take into account the current nature of village housing? I think many of us are aware, at least anecdotally, that a lot of our housing is substandard village. Let's say we have a major migration out of the village. What will happen to that space? Will they stay as they are? Apartments and rooms be suitable for the families that are supposed to move in there? Or would they be renovated? Those spaces be renovated to make them more accommodating to families? Well, if they're renovated, what will happen to the costs of those units there in the village? So again, there's a cost issue, there's an affordability issue that really needs examination. Excuse me. The DES determines that the project will lead to 413 new residents to the village. I just simply would like to know from what is that number derived? This is a massive project. I've lived here, as Susan said, almost 22 years, and there's nothing like it that I've seen, and I don't know that the whole area really has seen. So the public needs to be closely involved in this project. It could have such an impact. So please keep this hearing open as long as the public's needs are met. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call Keith Brown.
Brown. I've lived in New Paltz for 52 years. First of all, thank you to the Village Planning Board for taking on the enormous task of reviewing a project that is currently 100% not in the village. Therefore, wouldn't it make sense to pause the process while the town and village hold public hearings on annexation? The DEIS notes that zoning is still TBD. It feels like the DEIS cart is miles ahead of the process horse. As far back as your scoping session of June 2021, I commented that the town and village needed to hold hearings on annexation. In October 2022, I wrote to the town board and the village. Only Mayor Rogers responded, saying he hadn't heard back from attorneys about timing for the applicant and the annexation process, and he had just nudged them again. I have some comments that I believe apply whether or not the project is annexed. Maps. PB 21AX should add a map showing what the entirety of the village boundaries would look like if this property is annexed. There are a lot of maps, but we don't really see what the whole picture would be if annexation occurs. Public comment. I understand from your attorney that you will be discussing the public comment that you hear, but what were the responses to our public comments from 2021? They are included in the DEIS, but I don't see where the applicant responded to them. Project alternatives. This is a big one. Since the project is currently in the town, let's see a plan consistent with the town's
planned unit development zoning. This site is perfect for a PUD. It would provide a variety of housing options, including multifamily townhouses for students, local workforce, SUNY staff, graduates, families, as well as small businesses like a Stewart's or a My Market that would alleviate northbound traffic. Also, please include a plan that shows 3 or even 4-story buildings. We're all going to have to come to terms with the impact on our scenery that housing people are going to create. But the plan does say that screening will be able to provide relief from the roads and the view shed. So let's look at taller buildings. There would be much less ground disturbance, much less impervious surface, and much more open space. How will water be billed? Individual tenants, or management? What are the tools to conserve water? The DEIS shows all fixtures TBD. Are there going to be water saving fixtures? Are they going to be on timers? I mean, all of us who went to SUNY 50 years ago remembered that you could turn the water on in the showers and walk away. And maybe somebody else would turn them off, maybe not. That I think that timers should be considered. SUNY says in its handbook that all off-campus students call 911. So the economic and fiscal impact analysis included in the DEIS identified an additional 18 calls per service annually to fire, police, and EMS. I'm trying not to laugh here. When the pilot with Woodland Pond was negotiated, Woodland Pond estimated 4 calls a month. In fact, there are as many as 4 calls a day. Please provide data from all emergency services regarding calls to the campus. According to a conversation I recently had with a rescue squad president, the squad can't bill patients who decline transport. The DEIS should estimate what percentage of calls will not be reimbursed and therefore how this will affect taxpayers. Appendix P. I can't find a glossary in the DEIS, so I don't know what definition of multi-housing the applicant is using. The town and the village use different definitions. So let's nail down what the definition is that you're looking at. How many students may ask a friend or partner to move in to share the rent? What kind of occupancy will that increase? By the way, what is the projected rent? I know that students are very excited to think of more affordable housing. I don't know what people currently charge for a room in the village, but it would be good to have some sort of benchmark of what the projected rent will be here. Will leases be for 1 year or the academic year? 1 year? Okay, thank you. Appendix X, climate change. The DEIS notes that the project creates a new demand for electric, which can be provided by Central Hudson's existing system. Will the project opt into the community aggregation program that we've all worked hard to establish? The DEIS frequently refers to New York State's Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act regarding emissions, but it doesn't mention solar panels for new construction. None of the buildings or parking lots include solar panels. Adding these would be a significant benefit to the community by adding to rather than subtracting from the capacity of our municipal grid. The 2 newest buildings in New Paltz, Zero Place and our Emergency Operations Center, both installed rooftop solar panels. If the requested changes in zoning are granted, Rooftop solar panels should be mandatory as a fair exchange. Project area waste. How will food, hazardous household waste products, cosmetics, and electronics be disposed of? Since each unit will be furnished, how will damaged furniture, appliances, carpeting, curtains be disposed of? Years ago, the town ran a reuse drive for the textiles, clothing, kitchenware, shoes, and other stuff students left behind each May. Where will these items go when students move out? To our landfill? I don't think that has been calculated in the waste estimates that are provided. This document is hundreds of pages of text, maps, charts, and appendices that the public will need more time to review and also to digest tonight's comments. So please keep the public hearing open. The good thing is that wherever this project lands, the DEIS that is here before us lays solid groundwork for the next step in the process. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Ren Kingsley, WRENKINGSLEY. I'm a student at SUNY New Paltz, a senior. I've lived in the village for 4 years. When I started, I shared a room in a 6-person house and I paid $515 every year. Since then, it's gone up by about $100 or so, plus some, and I currently pay $785 plus my utilities and my like electric, Wi-Fi bills and all that kind of stuff. And I'm also the executive vice president of our student association, the vice president of Campus NYPIRG, and a sustainability ambassador on campus. And in all of the circles that this topic has come up in, I hear again and again and again the need for housing and affordable housing for adjunct professors, and students and grad students. And I was excited to hear the proposed project because there's a need for housing. And I just finished reading the book Happy City by Charles Montgomery, in which he talks about housing as an opportunity to build a happy community. As a student, one of the major issues that I see over and over and over again is the lack of mental health and physical well-being. And I'm interested in a housing development that would benefit the wellness of our students and our environment. I feel very concerned about parking lots and what a huge housing development would demand in terms of parking needs. Given the location of the property, I'm concerned about DDT and arsenic, and I think it's very important to include as like a historic perspective when we're testing the site, where we know DDT was applied, rather than a random sample. So I would encourage that to be included in the plan. I am also excited about the proposed bike path that would connect campus to the apartment buildings. That part of campus is low trafficked. It's where our micro farm is, and it would encourage campus to incorporate a bike lane that connects the south end of campus to the center of campus. In addition to the bike lane that connects the apartment building to campus, it is exciting to think about what this apartment complex could do to persuade the DOT to build a bike lane that connects those apartments to the middle school and to the high school. And I think in general, the town and the village of New Paltz needs to come together to reimagine what transportation in the community could look like. And I feel excited about what a large housing development would do in terms of rallying around these issues rather than pushing them away, because it's 2023, and by the time that this goes up, it'll probably be around 2030 likely. And we just don't have time to be putting up a building that isn't perfect and is not exactly what our community needs. And I would, let's see, as a SUNY New Paltz student, we have planned a forum on the 30th to educate students on this initiative and this housing. So I would urge the board to leave the comment period open past the 30th into December so that students can come together and become educated about what's going on. We have students who study urban planning and environmental science and environmental chemistry, biology, and we have a lot of expertise in our local area. And I would urge the board and the developer to be looking to students to collaborate in the development of this project. So, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak for you. In 2022, I was a resident of New Paltz. I currently reside in Port Washington. I am the former co-chairperson of the Village of New Paltz Environmental Conservation Commission from 2007 to 2010. Was the environmental expert on the commission at the time. I was the committee leader for the preservation of the Millbrook Preserve. And I've also walked the site and mapped the site of the proposed project multiple times. So my findings on the site are spoken of on the maps. The project site is on top of 2 wetlands recognized by the New York State DEC. The site overlaps on these wetlands. One of them is PFOA2. And in particular, also a trail is going to be developed on this wetland site, which is a hardwood swamp, that will fragment the hardwood swamp, the habitat, the wildlife that live there, as well as a stream that flows from the northern portion of campus down past Esopus, all the way to the Wallkill River. On the southern portion of the site, there's another wetland upon which the project site will be developed. In addition, there are 2 ponds just adjacent to the site with no setback from the proposed area. I should also say, I recommend that at least a 100-foot buffer be established around these wetlands, perhaps more, and that an agency such as Hudsonia that has a long period of study of New Paltz be considered for this ecological project. So another important finding is the use of all-terrain vehicles on the site. Today, I observed a very disturbing amount of all-terrain vehicles fragmenting wetlands, streams, and forest areas. This is a separate issue, but the law should be enforced against this problem, which is causing major harm every year. The site is also a laboratory for ecology. In Carol Rietzma's ecology class in 2006, we studied the site to assess and map and determine the richness of the forest that's adjacent to New Paltz. This site was studied for more than 10 years, and it should be considered as part of New Paltz's legacy and a long-term study site with a long-term baseline that can be used for future study. In conclusion, my findings are that the project site need be set back from these wetlands that are and one of which is connected to the Wallkill River, that harms to the site from all-terrain vehicles be ceased, and that any future development consider the fragmentation of habitats and disturbance to wildlife and hydrology, as is the nature of the site and its diverse wetlands, habitats, and wildlife.
Eric Coleman. Moving on to Lucas Paterka.
State apartment complex. Time on campus to educate the student body on this development, engage their reaction to it. There is the claim that students will be the ones to fill these units, and I fail to see how that is a definitive conclusion. Rent in a newly renovated housing complex will undoubtedly be unaffordable for most of the SUNY New Paltz population. Additionally, construction in the proposed area may have effects on staples of the campus environment, like the microfarm and the protected wetlands, which I have personal love and connection to, not to mention the strain that will be inflicted on the existing village infrastructure. The sewage and water demands of such a complex should be a huge source of concern. Time to assess the possible effects in our community, and I ask the planning committee to extend the deadline for public comments so more research and education can be performed. Thank you.
Uh,
Next. I can say on behalf of my fellow students who would like to be to ask for an extension on this hearing. We would like to have more time to educate and organize students on what building these apartments mean for the town and its well-being, especially with regard to the environment. We welcome you to our campus to speak to students about this matter, and I would help take care of setting times and dates for things like that in order to do so. So thank you.
And finally, Serena.
Second grade. I've been living off campus now for about 3 years. And last night I looked through the proposal with my 2 roommates, and while it sounded like a utopia, it also sounded very unaffordable, especially reading it in our current questionable housing. I live in one single family home that has been turned into a triplex that has a total of 12 tenants. Our rent is currently $835 a month, and our kitchen previously was a mudroom to a house. So about all these beautiful amenities, and it sounded wonderful, but we were ultimately left with more questions than we were with hope and responses. Rushing through a proposal like this without a thorough community understanding of its impact is genuinely a disservice to all students on campus, all potential students who will apply to SUNY New Paltz, and all residents currently living in town. Affordable housing in New Paltz is undoubtedly in crisis, and this proposal doesn't address the concerns held by residents. Concerns that we all are very well aware of, and you especially should all be very well aware of. For example, one of my largest concerns is how adding more housing, although beautiful, address the rising rents in existing units of New Paltz, the existing conditions of units all throughout New Paltz. Units that are filled, some students have to leave New Paltz to find affordable housing, but this key question I could not find any answers to in the current proposal. I urge you to grant an extension allowing for revisions that create housing that is affordable and takes into consideration the voices within this town and not just prospective capital gains by a private company. I and all the students who are here today love this university, love this town, would like to ultimately stay here perhaps after graduating, but we need to access to safe and affordable housing. And at this point, at this current proposal, I do not believe that any of this provides that. An extension, though, is not an outright rejection, but it is an investment in a thoughtful, inclusive future, and we should not sacrifice the long-term well-being of our community for potential short-term gains. Thank you.
there any others who not gotten a chance to speak? Okay. In that case, I think we should open it up to online. Is anyone on Zoom here to make a public comment? Yeah. Raise their hand. Okay. If you're watching on Zoom and wish to speak, please raise your hand and we can unmute you. Okay, it seems like that is everyone who wishes to speak tonight. Yeah, that would be a good thing to check as well. Um, Thank you for the class. I should just unmute it, just speak the questions. I think those people are. Makes sense. All right. Well, in that case, I mean, I think we heard loud and clear from the community that people want more time to to comment and to look through the DEIS. I mean, I'm in favor of extending the public comment period at least one more meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to extend the public hearing through December 5th, so that way we can use our December 21st meeting for the projects. Sorry.
Any additional information in advance of the reopening of the public hearing on December 5th? Public hearing on December 5th only be in response to what's currently in
Advertised. That material. Yeah.
or have questions or want comments?
I would just like to thank people who came out. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, well, in that case, I'd like a motion to, adjourn the meeting. Okay. So, turn the public hearing until our December 5th meeting. Available? All in favor? Aye. Now, could I have a motion to adjourn?